So there's that part of it. To the extent, I don't know if it's an attack on me as so much as it is an attack on the United States Constitution. When you guys sign that in front of a notary, I hope you read it. It says, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That means the First Amendment to the Constitution. That means if people are trying to shut people up against the Constitution of the United States, we have a duty, if we take our oath seriously, to defend the Constitution of the United States. And that includes people who bring lawsuits against people for speaking out against the sewer tax, people who bring lawsuits for speaking out against tiered water rates, people who bring lawsuits against people for speaking out and being critical of a public figure. All things that Superior Court Judge Sidney Paul Chapin took under consideration, and he said, that lawsuit's no good, I'm throwing it out. All I've done, and speaking out, and both in June 19th, again in the July meeting, I never held anything back, and also the August meeting, is point out that there is something rotten in Denmark, in Roseman, and that is what's been going on at the Roseman Community Services District has been, with their manager, bringing a lawsuit to shut people up during the election season. It is a direct affront to the United States Constitution, and I take that very seriously. And to the extent that you think I was offending somebody or acting on myself, I have to tell you, first of all, of course it affects me personally to be sued. And I hope none of you have to go through that. But at the same time, I generally take the position, there's 5 other people listed on there that I don't want to see dragged into a lawsuit, and they were not, fortunately. But they were named, and the possibility existed. The point is that what I see here in the last sentence here, for you, those of you who don't know, our brothers to the south, in the unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County, have been subjected to what if roving NAT teams, 13 people, 4 or 5 bands, with people armed, one with a M4 rifle, coming up to their houses and knocking house and making inspections for building and zoning enforcement. I've been dealing with that.
Okay, what does that have to do with?
We're getting there. I've been dealing with that for over a year and a half, and the one thing I've been dealing with is Government Code 31010, which is how we're formed, the advisory council. The fact that LA County will not even consider granting an advisory council. But what you also need to understand is that because of the state laws, hey Dennis, the way that they're written, and since September 2012, no new cities can be formed. Cities can't take on additional areas. There's only 2 areas that are left. That's either you're either a city or you're in the county. And if you're in the county, you have no choice but to remain in the county. That's what I'm saying. And especially in Los Angeles County, only 11% of the people live in the unincorporated areas. They are disenfranchised, and they have been put down time and time again. And that's in front of the federal judge on November 24th.
Can we stick to Kern County now?
I still have the floor, yes. Let me explain where I'm coming from here. And what I'm getting to is a county government has the ability to do legislative, executive branch, and judicial branch all rolled up in one. They are the closest thing you can get to a king, if you will, unless you have a right to vote them out. And what I see here is Second District Supervisor exercising the prerogative of kings, are threatening to say, look, I'm in charge here, you answer to me, you don't answer to the people. We answer to the people, we answer to the United States Constitution. That's my allegiance to. It's not to Zach Scribner. It's to the people of Roseman, and it's to the people to the United States Constitution, the California Constitution. The exact oath that I took, it's the same oath that you say you're going to take. And if you take that oath, I hope you take it seriously and what that stands for. It doesn't stand for kowtowing to a Second District Supervisor. Any district supervisor says, I'm going to pull your charter if I don't like the way you're acting. That's not the way it works. If he wants to make it work that way,
we have more authority than he.
We have the people have all authority. Yes, it's we the people.
Isn't such a thing as slandering?
Slandering what? People. Of course, there's such a thing as slandering the people. If you need to understand that, in First Amendment law, that you're required to turn the other cheek, whether you like it or not, if you're a public figure. And if you're in a public meeting and someone wants to come up here and slander you, that, again, we are required to turn the other cheek. It's required. It's the sacrifice you make for the First Amendment. You may not agree in that Christian principle, but that's kind of forced on you, and that's the law. And the reason we do that is because we understand the Constitution is important. The ability to speak freely, even if it's wrongly, and even if it is slanderous or defamatory, is something that's very important to be able to air out our differences in a civil way. And
Well, are you, correct me if I just heard you, did you just say that slander is protected free speech?
slander at a public meeting, if someone says something that criticizes you. For example, I was in a meeting recently with the RCSD where the guy stood up and said, "I don't trust a lot of you. I think you're all crooks." That is a figure of speech that is
It's not
somewhat
slander.
That's not
slanderous.
slander.
But
It's not slander. He
well,
said, I think.
it's defamatory.
He said it's opinion. Opinion is
Well,
not.
that's what I'm saying.
If he
That's what-
said, I have proof that you stole something, that would be different. But opinion is not slander.
I understand. And I think that the ultimate opinions were expressed last Tuesday when the incumbents of the RCSD, whether they were good or bad, were swept out of office because of the policies that had been passed, whether they had supported those policies or not. And that is the ultimate opinion maker, and that's the one that the voters, I think, expressed their opinion.
Olas, so like you said, he has the right to say his opinion in that letter, and as a resident of who you guys are representing, I want to hear the letter.
You can come read it.
No, I want everybody to hear the letter because he has a right to freedom of speech too. He wrote that letter to you to read. I would like to hear it.
Dennis, would you mind reading the letter that we're talking
12th, 2014, dear Rosemont Municipal Advisory Council members. Since the creation of the Rosemont Municipal Advisory Council in 2006, you have provided valuable advice to the 2nd District Supervisor and an important information forum for the Rosemont community. The formation of the RMAC created a place for discussions of the everyday real-life issues that affect the community. Condition of the streets and how to get them repaired, dialogue with the Kern County Sheriff and the California Highway Patrol, updates from the Southern Kern Unified School District and the Rosemont Community Services District. As an advisor to my office, you have been effective at bringing specific issues that need attention by county government to light so we can work together, and I have appreciated the diligence and thoughtful public dialogue your council has conducted on issues. An example of such diligence is your recent presentation by a Southern California Edison representative on the streetlight issue, which provided an important format for accurate information to the community. Hope to God that camera's insured. Which was not in the letter. I am therefore very concerned at the recent actions of your council in creating an atmosphere of attack and grandstanding in the presentation of the Rosemont Community Services District credit card discussion. One of your members, Olaf Landsgaard, has been personally sued by the general manager of the RCSD, and that lawsuit is pending. The county has declined to provide a defense for Mr. Landsgaard in the lawsuit. It is my understanding that just prior to or shortly after the date the lawsuit was filed, Mr. Landsgaard used his position in the RMAC to present financial information out of context for discussion as an RMAC public agenda item related to the very matters for which he is being sued. In my opinion, it is inappropriate for a member of your council to use the RMAC in that manner, i.e. to further his own personal interests. If your council wishes some investigation of the finances of the RCSD, then the appropriate action through a proper agenda item on, or a proper item on the agenda, is to have a vote of the full council to refer a request to the grand jury for an investigation of your allegations, or ask my office to consider a board referral if you believe there have been some actionable offense. Okay, has been. You are not qualified to perform such investigations yourself. and it is inappropriate to allow the council's, where's page 2? Agenda to be diverted to further members' personal interests or to use the council for political gain. I ask your council to publicly discuss this letter at your next meeting and take formal actions necessary to get the council back on track for the important business of discussions and education supportive of the public health and safety of the Roseman community. Examples of useful discussion topics are enclosed in this letter. If your council continues to divert these important resources to other agendas, I will be considering the usefulness of the RMAC and its future. Sincerely, Zach Scribner, 2nd District Attorney, Kern County
Service District, and it's handling a tax that was going to be placed on a flood district that would have bankrupted a lot of people who lived in the area. And that's why the Roseman Rural Town Council was formed. They kept on having fundraisers, if you recall. I think Mr. Schaffner was even on that town council, along with three members who were elected to the RCSD board after that. 4 of them ran. The very purpose, like I said, was to criticize the RCSD. That was why it was formed. When it became the Roseman Municipal Advisory Council in 2006, it was done at the behest of a former U.S. Marine, Don Maven, who understood the Constitution and understood that he was not going to take anything away from us by having us become a municipal advisory council, not tell us to water down what we do. In fact, we didn't water down what we did. And I guess if you look at what we did October 16th, we did that in direct contravention to what Mr. Scrivener's letter said. We had a public forum. We discussed the sewer tax. We discussed the street lighting. We discussed the high water rates, all in the form of a public debate, all something his letter says nothing about. And that's something we've always done.
This gentleman in the back with a question.
I'm with this, what that letter says right there, that's his opinion, and he asked that be read, and you tried to suppress it yourself just now at the beginning of this meeting. You didn't want that letter read in front of the public. So, are you any better than anybody else, or what?
I think that's a rhetorical question. It has nothing to do with the discussion.
It definitely has something to do with it. You're a council member up there that just tried to suppress something by somebody who governs you.
The letter was read at the September meeting, I believe, already once. To have it read again, it seems to be, I'm not sure why you want to have it read, but
why would you have a problem with it then? Why did you even say anything as many to try to keep it from being read?
It was asked to be read again to refresh everyone's memory. Not everybody here was
I mean,
so the point is, on that date, before that date, the Roseman Municipal Advisory Council didn't exist. On that date, the Roseman Town Council ceased to exist, and the Roseman Municipal Advisory Council stood up. Now, one morphed from the other, and the original intent of that other was there, but that was not the continuing intent of the Roseman Municipal Advisory Council. The Roseman Municipal Advisory Council's role was, does anybody have that stuff, that section of the state law? You have that?
Government code section of the resolution formula.
3101.
Yeah.
This is what was in your agenda from a while back.
Okay, Government Code section 31010. Doesn't sound right. The Board of Supervisors, now this is state law, by any county may, by resolution, establish and provide funds for the operation of a municipal advisory council, or any unincorporated area in the county, which is what we are, to advise the board, that's the Board of Supervisors, on such matters which relate to that area as may be designated by the board concerning services which may be provided to that area by the county or other local governmental agencies, including but not limited to advice on matters of public health, safety, welfare, public works, and planning. That's our primary charter. Provide advice on matters, local matters of public health, safety, welfare, public works, and planning. That's our primary purpose now. Unless the Board of Supervisors specifically provides to the contrary, A municipal advisory council may represent community to any state, county, city, or special district, or school district, or any agency, commission, or any other organization on a matter concerning the community. So the point is, our primary goal is to provide advice. Our secondary role is to be a community information forum. So I'm willing to share.
Where'd you get the second page?
Oh, I-
Where'd you
No,
get-
that's true, okay, yeah.
Cut it out.
So page 2.
Now, page 2.
Okay, so, is to be an informational forum, which is why section 7 of our agenda is there every time, to provide an opportunity for the various community leaders here, like the sheriff's department, someone from the base, whatever that might be, Rosemary Foundation, Chamber of Commerce, Unified School District, to provide a place where people can get one meeting to go to and get caught up on all that's going on, right? So the point here is that we have a wonderful two-way communication conduit tool here. The county seat is a long way from here, and there's a freaking mountain range in the middle, okay? So that was the point. So, but we serve at the, and before we did this, the reputation of the Roseman Town Council had degenerated to the point where, when I asked folks about it, they likened it to a bunch of good old boys sitting around the Cracker Barrel at the general store, kind of chawing and spitting and talking to each other. And I felt that we needed to do something better than that, which is why I asked Supervisor Maben at the time is there some way we can make this a legitimate body where the members can be voted on? You know, in theory, that doesn't happen. And that's a theory. And that way we can have this forum to provide that communication conduit. And that's when we, so the fact that he says it was created on that date, sure, it doesn't acknowledge the history, but that's the day the Municipal Advisory Council was there, so that's a factual statement.
Yes.
Now,
Thanks, Jess, for clearing that up.
and there's the guy who wrote a lot of our bylaws.
Mr. Wardlaw.
The whole idea, I mean, your statement that the opinion of the town council that it wasn't doing anything, or whatever you said, I don't agree with, because we had major forums in this building. We had all kinds of school people here, we had different people, we had when the college was looking for funds, we had the college president here. I think the town council was a great organization. We all recognized that a better job could be done if it was formalized. And my understanding is it was Don Maben that came to us and said, would you guys like to morph into this town council? And so we made the transition. But I don't like the tone of Mr. Scrivener's letter, because he's basically saying that the public vote, the public voting for this group and the community's initiative and efforts to run it and operate it is more important than the fact that he's got a governmental committee. I just really resent that, because this group is a community group. It's wonderful that they're listening to us and we're listening to them, but it's for everybody's benefit. I think the tone of this letter is upside down. It's not the government that's setting this group up. The emotion, the energy, the activities, the accomplishments, we had our own newsletter. We did a lot of things then that united the community, and I think it's an insult now for this to be stated. I'm sorry.
Dennis, when you said that our goal is to advise and for informational forum, I appreciate information that the board here will get for us to hear things and know things that RS, the Roseman Community Service District is doing. So I just, for him to say it's inappropriate, and I'm confused, and the tone seems rather harsh.
Present financial information out of context for discussion as an RMAC public agenda item. Relating to the very matters for which he is being sued. In my opinion, it is inappropriate for a member of your council to use RMAC in that manner to further his own personal interest. As far as I understood, I don't know if I'm right or wrong on this, were you being sued or were you suing RCSD at the time?
The answer is no, I was not suing RCSD at the time, so to say I was furthering my own personal interest would be incorrect.
Were you representing somebody as under your own personal profession?
The only thing I was doing was defending myself and pointing out to the public that there was a problem here and that lawsuit had been hidden. And that was the whole idea, was the lawsuit had never made it on an RCSD agenda, even though the manager was being represented by the district's attorney. Never made it on the agenda, which is a violation of the Brown Act, possibly. In my opinion, it appeared to be, and may still be. But that's something we'll find out later as we get on the board and find out how that came down. The fact is, there had to be, anytime an attorney represents more than one client, that attorney has to ask the other client if he can represent the other client. That's one reason why I'm not well, after I started my practice here as the Community Services District Attorney, I didn't want to present every client that I wanted to represent here in town to the board of directors and say, hey, is it okay if I represent this guy? Because that's what you have to do ethically. And that obviously should come before, somewhere in the minutes, there should be something about them having done that. And I could not find anything in the RCSD minutes to indicate that they ever had a closed session item where they came out and said what we talked about and we waived the conflict to allow Mr. Gibson to represent Mr. Perez in a personal lawsuit against a number of people in the community. That never came out. At the same time, Mr. Gibson had maintained a relationship where he is listed as the counsel for the Roseland Community Services District. Therefore, you would expect to see, at least I would expect to see, something about waiving the conflict. And he doesn't have to discuss anything with the board about what he's doing with his client, but he should at least have had, in my opinion, he should have had a conflict waiver coming from the board stating it's okay for him to go forward with the lawsuit. And I think that's the part that I brought up. That's the part as far as the lawsuit goes against me. And also to bring up the fact that at that time, people needed to know that that there are provisions in the law that protect speech here. It's called the Anti-Slang Code of Procedure section, and we presented that evening too. 415.16, I believe, the CCP quite clearly states that, and there are other provisions in the Civil Code section 47 that say if you present something for presentation at a public meeting, that's absolutely privileged. Two concepts that our board was not aware of, that our board should be aware of, to understand where our role is going and whether or not that's something we have to be afraid of.
I remember one of your resolutions was regarding something with RCSD and I want to say the Roseland News. That's correct.
The third one had to do with the fact that they continue to bring frivolous motions against the RCSD.
But weren't you at the time also representing the owner of that paper, John Joyce, in a legal matter?
And June 19th, that's
so
correct.
shouldn't you have not maybe recused yourself from any of those resolutions?
The third resolution, that was on June 19th. The judge decided in that case too, as you may well know. He made a written decision on July 3rd saying there was no basis for Mr. Gibbs's motion whatsoever.
But since you were currently employed in the first place, to be brought before the RMAC?
That's a good point. We never got to that resolution, so I don't know if you recall, that's the third one we never got to. We talked about the first one.
We actually removed those entirely, but you're the one that brought up the agenda items.
Did I present it? Yes, I did.
And you tried using the RMAC in a sense for your personal interest as well, is the way how I would look at that.
Okay, I understand that.
For free speech, of course you do. The thing was that when you brought up the resolutions, they weren't discussed prior to being put onto the agenda. And then on top of that, when you made the statements that you did make regarding the RCSD, you made it representing the RMAC, in which the RMAC did not, support those comments that you had made.
As you know, the month prior to that, we passed 15 resolutions that I didn't present to you either. That I presented to you, I think, that night, or in a modified version. We made them up as we went along, and that's kind of what I expect us to do. And if there's problems, you got to start somewhere. And usually what we do is we modify a resolution, say we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And obviously I wasn't expecting the resolutions to be picture perfect coming out, and obviously they weren't. But the fact is they need to get on the floor for discussion.
Whenever there was an incident that needed to be addressed, there was usually a discussion, and if it involves someone from a different organization, then what the RMAC would do, we would invite that the opposing party to come before the RMAC to give their side of the story, instead of just passing out resolutions. I mean, that's the way I've done it when I was chairman. That's the way Shopton did it when he was chairman. That's the way Jim Payne did it when he was chairman. The thing is, we allow the other if they're differing opinions, we invite the other side to come to the RMAC and voice that opinion.
Well, first of all, the other side did come to the RMAC on June 19th and did attack the resolutions and obviously had a strong say about those. So
Website. It's a valid letter where you've submitted a tort claim to RCSD related to Prop 218
correct.
within the last year.
In December of 2013, I believe that's correct.
And then you brought a resolution claiming that the RCSD is violating Prop 218 to the RMAC.
On a different issue, that was on the sewer issue.
So Prop 218, correct?
Different issue, sewer.
Sewer water to Prop 218, right?
Well, we understand in December 2013, the RCSD had not passed a resolution placing
Okay.
the sewer bills on the property tax.
Did you notify anybody on the board that you were actively pursuing litigation strategy with RCSD at that time,
In December?
when you brought these resolutions?
Oh, by that time I had not. What I'd written was that the better avenue is to seek a political resolution, because if I had done that, I'd be suing myself. So, my community, which would have a negative effect. I had written quite clearly prior to the resolutions, we're not bringing in a lawsuit.
Okay, but I'm confused then, because you said you submitted a claim. The tort claim is a very specific piece of paper, which is brought before you're able to file a lawsuit,
Right.
and has to be rejected. You submitted one to Rosamond CSD claiming they violated Prop 218.
No,
That's not what that says?
I don't have to see that. What I said,
Well, maybe you should see it, because
so they're tiered water
as I
rates.
was preparing for this, I found this on Google. It's about the fourth hit down, and quite frankly, it was the first time I saw it, and I'm a little confused by it.
You have to do with tiered water rates,
Okay, I got that.
okay, and,
I see your discussion about Palmdale and 218.
okay,
Although you actually don't mention 218 in the front, that's what you're after, it's not Prop 13.
well, I see what you're saying too. No, what the court said in the Palmdale case was that you can't have tiered water rates. And I don't know if that comes under 218 or what it comes under, but I believe that comes more under other California law.
No, actually, that would be Prop 218, and I don't think it's,
Okay,
we don't need to get into whether or not you're right or wrong on that right now, but I will simply say that Palmdale does not go as far as you're saying tonight, as far as tiered rates. There was some problems with tiered rates in the Palmdale case, but it actually said tiered rates were valid, but that's not the issue. The issue is, as I've heard earlier relating to this newspaper, the question has been presented to you after you made claims that Mr. Gibson should have recused himself or made it clear that he had conflicts. You not only had the paper that you were representing, but you also were actively pursuing a litigation strategy against Rosamond CSD on a Prop 218 matter.
I think where you're confusing the conflict is, number one, I'm not representing the RMAC as an attorney. And I think you've got that confused. So hopefully you understand that I'm an elected member to the Rosamond Municipal Advisory Council, and as such, I don't have to recuse myself on issues that are this tangential. And obviously, I'm not pushing any personal interests here. I'm not pushing any interest on the Aerosports Skypark Corporation. We've given up on that long before June, and that was in writing. The fact, and as far as Mr. Joyce's newspaper, the hearing on that case was held the day before, on June 18th, and quite clear that Mr. Gibson had no case at that hearing either. But I
The
guess
day before what?
June 18th was when Judge Lackey heard the argument on whether Mr. Gibson heard Mr. Gibson's motion.
Okay, the question is the day before what? The day before you sent out your agenda, the
Oh,
day
no,
before
no.
you drafted your resolution, the day before the meeting?
The day before the meeting.
Okay, so you had already put out in public record an agenda with resolution that had that out there.
Correct.
Now, isn't Zach CC'd on that court claim letter? and sees your resolution, it would be appropriate for Zach to think that your resolution was related more to your 218 claim with our Rosamond CSD.
Yeah, I think you're speculating, counsel. Are you to talk to Zach? Is that go to this?
Actually, I haven't talked to Zach. I'm asking you because you're an attorney. And I'm asking you what you would think because you've attacked Zach for putting in there that this he thought was to your personal benefit. I think we need to be specific because you haven't told anybody until I brought this up, this letter.
You really want me to get into that?
Well, I mean, there it is.
No, that's not where it's at.
There's the CC. So Zach knew you had a 218 issue with Rosamond CSD as you were actively pursuing litigation strategy, correct?
I have no
At the
idea.
time the agenda.
I have no idea what Zach knew. I don't know what he
Do
read.
you think Zach would
I
have allowed
can
that
tell you
letter?
is I did have breakfast with Zach in July,
Okay.
a month before he wrote his letter. And the topic of the tiered water rates and the 218 letter from December 2013 never came up. So for me to speculate on what Zach thought, I doubt very seriously he was talking about that. What I believe Zach was hearing, and I haven't talked to him since that time, he was hearing from multiple sources, many of them who were not present at June 19th and many who weren't present in July, telling him different things that were going on at the RMAC in August. So he's getting a mishmash of things, none of which make total sense.
At the time of those, just to verify though, weren't we videotaping those meetings? And Zach had a video of that meeting to where,
Which meeting?
of Olaf's actions that
When
we're
did we
also
start
talking
No,
about?
we did not have a video.
No.
I'm also confused because I heard you earlier to say that the RMAC should be aware of legal issues. And you brought them forward in your resolutions. But now you're saying you're not the RMAC's attorney, which clearly you're not. But don't you think that if you're bringing forward legal conclusions in those resolutions, that they should have been put forward to counsel for RMAC before you put them out there in the agenda?
They were,
If they were,
yes.
they were approved by who?
No, they were put forward to counsel, your counsel.
Okay, who approved them?
They were put, Mrs. Goldman, nobody approved them. All I got back was a email saying, be careful what you say, make sure you don't make any personal attacks that are too egregious, and make sure you clean up the language, basically words to that effect. But yeah, they were sent to the county counsel's office.
Step on. This council is, having a town council was one thing, just a group of people talking and coming up with ideas and giving them to and/or whoever would listen to. Now this is set up by the county seat to be a council to collect information from all these community members to the five here. The five people decide which ones they further on to Zach Scribner. You guys are whoever is the second district council. I don't think the group here can start and/or litigate and/or do anything. All they are is to collect the information from the people. The information that is good information that we really need to work on needs to be lifted up to the council.
You want to put it over to next meeting?
No, we have to, we put it over the last 2 months.
All right.
It's on the agenda for some background from legal at this point. Whether or not you want to have a censure hearing, you actually want to move forward with the censure, that's something that's done later. I'll kind of get there as I work you through this.
Okay, go ahead.
So, obviously, they've already got some misconceptions, so let's be clear what they are. This item on the agenda tonight.
Can you stand up and introduce yourself?
Sure.
My name's Phil Long with the Kern County Counsel's Office,
Attorney for RMAC at this stage. Okay, so let's be clear what's on the agenda today. It's not an action to censure Director Lansgard at this stage. Rather, let's be very clear, this item is just to give the board some background on what censure is and what a board member can and cannot be censured for. Once I've finished my presentation, the board's going to have its chance to discuss the matter more fully. If there's still an interest to hold a censure hearing, that hearing will need to be set at a further board meeting. And I'll get into why that is in a moment. First, let's make sure we understand what a censure is. It's a very unique creature. It's both a toothless tiger and at the same time, it's a very harsh action by a public agency. to put it in further context, a censure action is really no more than a formal resolution of a legislative body that reprimands, a member of its board for a specified conduct that was inappropriate. Secondly, and it's important to remember this, censure addresses inappropriate conduct only. A board member does not lose their ability to express their opinion because they're on a board. With that said, if they abuse their position or the process to express that opinion, that would be censurable conduct. Third and most importantly, censure is only appropriate if there is actual and willful abuse. Simply being wrong about something is not grounds for censure. So if you're wrong, that's not grounds for censure. It's when you are willfully wrong about something. So let's kind of bring this back to an example of these resolutions. In the recent misuse of power resolution, which is 1318, which I understand Director Landsgaard wrote entirely, there's at least 3 errors of law. One, the CSD manager doesn't collect assessments for the CSD any more than any other employee at the CSD. 2, the CSD was not formed pursuant to Government Code Section 61-100, because that section wasn't even in operation until 2006. And 3, RMAC bylaws clearly provide that the RMAC has no authority to present requests to the Attorney General. In order to censure Director Landsgaard for these errors, you're going to have to find and believe and conclude that those errors were deliberate and part of a plan to abuse his position as an RMAC member. To give another example, let's look at just one of the agenda items. This is on the utility. Okay, so it's again 1318. On the agenda for July 17th's hearing, the agenda goes into an extremely long agenda for an item. There are things in here which just simply do not apply.
You were aware that Mr. Gilbert made sure we struck most of that from the agenda?
Striking it from the agenda at this meeting.
No, he struck it back on July. Okay.
But you put it out and published it and posted it, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So that doesn't cure the defect that you posted. Okay. So you cite an Attorney General's opinion, which isn't really on point. You have Government Code sections which deal with organization and annexation and change of organizations under LAFCO for districts. They don't affect streetlights. Streetlights are zone benefits under 218, which we now know you were in some sort of form of a lawsuit with RCSD.
You're confusing apples to oranges there. We were fortunate when we had the streetlight discussion with Ms. Knipple. We also had Lorelei Oya here from Kern County Planning. And one of the things we discussed was if the RCSD abdicate its street lighting function and to give it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that falls under 218 or what it falls under, but it what that street lighting thing addressed was what do we do about that? How do we address the lack of street lights? Can we form a district under the county if the RCSD is not going to do it? That's what came out of that. So I don't know.
That's not what this agenda language says. This agenda language discusses LAFCO. And it ends with the question, has to be asked. Did LAFCO approve 43 separate street lighting districts?
Right.
LAFCO doesn't approve street lighting districts in a CSD. That's a 218 zone of benefit issue.
That's a question that was asked.
So the question then becomes again, did Director Landsgaard, in preparing the agenda, simply not understand LAFCO, which quite frankly, if you read this, there's some logic here, but it is not really appropriate. LAFCO does not deal with street lighting zones once the district is formed and give that power. But this acts as though, did LAFCO approve 43 separate street lighting districts? So the question then becomes again, is that an error, or was it a deliberate action, putting it on the agenda to create an abuse of power? The only way you're able to censure Director Landsgaard for that type of action is to come to the conclusion that it was a deliberate abuse of power. If it was simply a misreading of LAFCO's provisions, which I'll be very honest with you, they are quite complicated. But if it was an error, it's not censurable. If it was deliberate, it's censurable. You have to provide the members of the Lands Guard with some due process. In this instance, that would be formal notice of the proposed censure and the direct grounds supporting it. And then at a later board meeting, the possibly censured director, in this case again Mr. Lansgard, would be given the chance to respond and defend himself to those items. And you would have to, of course, present what you believe is your reasons for thinking that this was an abuse of conduct. So with that said, that's my presentation, and it falls back in your courts.
Well, he misspeaks or whatever that we did, and we just move on. Because I think, and again, he's going to be, leaving us here in a few days anyway. The only admonition that I would add that, the Lansgard family has had a record of Roseman of service for decades. They really go all out to do all they can to really be in lockstep with what we want, which is to help make Roseman a better place to live and work. And they've, your brother and your sister-in-law, I know, and your mom and dad have been for years very active and doing all they can to make Roseman better. And I know that you're in league with that, that you agree with that. The only thing I would add is that, and you're a smart guy,
Not that smart.
Well, but no, I mean, if you pass the bar, I can't, well, the only bar I could, never mind. I don't even want to go there. But the only thing that I would ask Olaf is that in the future that you would use your powers for good instead of evil. That's all I'm saying. So if we can kind of stick to that and march forward, then I think that the points have been made, and then we can press on from here.
In my opinion, I think that we really need to move forward. Just with my little experience in being on the board here and what I've seen, we've spent all this time, and we're continuing to add to this. I think, and I understand, and there's a lot of personal feelings here, and we're essentially all friends, and we're all in this together. And I'm not in the business of saying kumbaya for everybody concerned, but by the same, right is right and wrong is wrong. By the same token, we are so bogged down with this now. We're really not getting anything done, and we just have to move forward. This man has been elected to do another office. He's out of here as far as RMAC is concerned, and I think that to go forward with any other thing would be a personal thing. I think more than anything, which I'm diametrically opposed to. And I also, Dennis kind of sold my thunder. When I read this letter initially, again, keep in mind I'm not really versed in politics. I'm not familiar with Kern County politics, essentially. And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't know that just one man could dissolve this whole board anyway. I wasn't aware of that, number one. Number two, the 25 years that my wife and I have lived here, we've seen how the Lansguards put their heart and soul in this community, and you people know that. And so, to me, if you want to punish somebody, I don't know how you could punish anybody more than this, no matter what he did, next to killing somebody. It's just, I think he got too personal, and this is a part of politics that I don't like, that I don't really want anything to do with. So, if I'm in this capacity, I'm going to direct it a different way. I want to move this, I want to move forward and get something done with what we're trying. That's why we're here. We're trying to get something accomplished here. This has become personal, political, and if I have anything to do with it, it's going to stop. So you're going to know my position, and I stand behind it. If you don't have any convictions to yourself, then you're not much of anything. You're just taking up the space. Let this alone. Let's go forward.
Okay, so
I think on that though, I mean, he was just elected to another board, and these actions that he has done in the past, Mr. Hall, just make sure. I thought one of the things that you said earlier was that he wasn't allowed to make legal conclusions, and that's kind of what he was doing in those?
That is absolutely correct. He was not acting as the RMAC legal counsel. And there are legal conclusions made in this. Did LAFCO approve those? That's a legal conclusion. And quite frankly, it's a legal conclusion that really needs to be drawn by somebody that has extensive experience with Courtney's Knox, because it's a very poorly written set of statutes, and it even contradicts itself at times. So, you know, doesn't contradict itself on this provision, but it is very difficult. I mean, I will be straight honest, that is a difficult provision. But some of the other stuff, the collected by general manager, I mean, that's the kind of thing that shouldn't be in the resolution. So, you know, there are legal conclusions made in these. And it troubles me as counsel that resolutions are coming through, but you don't have legal counsel here to explain them. And as I first understood what Olaf was saying, he seemed to be saying that you needed to be aware of these legal issues. And so he was bringing them forward. Well, that's fine, but then you weren't getting the legal counsel on the other side. You weren't getting the independent legal position of, I'm the counsel for the RMAC board, this is what I think. Or the research, quite frankly. Because if you'd researched those, a discussion with Rebecca Moore at LAFCO would have quickly found out that street lighting, those are zones of benefits. Zone of benefit, for example, is a 218 issue. That's what 218 is about. Assessments for zones of benefit under Section 4, and that's why they are not subject to LAFCO. They are specifically for those little areas that will be served by those lights will pay that money. That's what the zone of benefit means. So when you say the separate lighting districts, they're not lighting districts. They're separate zones, appreciated out by how much money they would be paying for the lighting. So that's what troubles me, is when I see these, there appears to be legal conclusions made in this resolution. But again, unless it is willful, you can't censure it. You can't be censured for being wrong.
All the more reason to move on.
Well,
No.
That we would,
If he's leaving, what was censure do?
Hey,
I
wait a
mean,
minute.
Nothing, it has no such
And we'd
point.
drag on and we'd go way
You
beyond.
can make an emotion
we
there.
don't need to.
yeah, I would move that we would thank county council for their help with understanding the process, and that we would not pursue the suggested censoring.
Any discussion on the motion,
Need a second.
or do we need a second?
Yeah, need a second.
Okay, we just need a second.
Jason second.
Jason? Okay. Way to go. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
There's a little bit of our fee goes into a pot, and the whole point of this is to it's an air quality thing. There's money available. I think it's about $325,000, $350,000, something like that, per year, available for folks that apply for projects like paving dirt roads, for example. If our dirt road is heavily traveled, it's for always kicking up dust. That's a PM10 issue. You know, particulate matter to what's it, 10 microns, I think. You know, we don't want that in the air. The intent of that in the first place, because of the districts here affecting Edwards and Channel Lake, were that if the air quality was bad, that we couldn't get new missions assigned to the base. So they wanted to do everything they could to encourage good air quality for the benefit of Edwards Air Force Base and the Naval Air Weapons Station, or center at China Lake. So the idea was to provide money for to replace older, more polluting vehicles with newer, less polluting or zero-emission vehicles, or for education programs to, if someone came up with a good idea to encourage folks. The whole idea is to clean up the air. And so if you go to the Kern County website, www.kernair.org, the application is there, the rules are there. If you have any questions, you can certainly ask me. I have a copy of those as well. And for example, at the last meeting, there was a request for some grant money to put in electric charging stations. Electric cars are far less polluting than the gas cars are. And one of the drawbacks with them is that there are very few places you can go to charge them up if you're away from your house. So
And we approved a couple of them. And now, so some of these grants have, what would you call it, co-pay deductible? They'll only do like, you have to put up to 20%, they'll put up, matching it, thank you, that's right. So, some don't. So, but we're in the zone now to start researching it now. If you think you have an idea or you want to look at it, say, you know, I want to apply for some of the money. Now is the time to look at the new rules are out, the applications are out. They have a staff over there at the Kern County Air Pollution Control District that'll help you with all that. They'll help you with the math, help you with all that. A number of entities have used this program very well, like the Mojave Airport. They've replaced almost all their old clunky vehicles that were really polluters with new, less polluting vehicles. One of the funniest ones was the China, no, not China, what do you call it? The Ridgecrest had a couple of older sedans with real high miles and, you know, kind of polluting. They learned to, and they were used primarily for transporting prisoners. And however, they wanted to replace them with Ford Escapes. I thought it was counterproductive. You know, that just cracks me up today. So, and the airport folks have replaced a lot of their vehicles. So those are the kinds of projects that are out there. And so the point of item C is to let you know that the applications are due by January 9th. You know, maybe you pull the RV over, type up the application, whatever you got to do. But now we're in the zone, and that's all I have.
Then you might as well go on to item D.
Well, I don't know what that is. Correspondence for elections for.
An update on Diamond Street. It's a $1 million transportation enhancement project. The design is complete. The CDC approved the allocation. The bid is going out this month, and construction will be anticipated in spring. And Red Rock and Randsburg Road is a $1.9 million CMAC project. From the 14 to Garlock Road, they're paving the shoulders.
Thank God.
And it's 50% complete. They expect to have that complete next month. 25th Eagle and Rosewood Boulevard. Request for crosswalk improvements and design for rectangular rapid flashing beacons complete.
Where's that?
25th Eagle and Rosewood Boulevard.
Oh, that's behind there.
Eagle is where Taco Bell is, the 25th is across the street.
And
Townsburger.
county maintenance
Oh.
will be installing
It's
this.
McDonald's.
Okay.
So county maintenance will be installing rectangular rapid flashing beacons and improving the crosswalk. On Rosewood Boulevard, 35th Street West, they're fixing the signals. I guess they're just not coordinated right. Sorry. 90th Street West and Avenue A, they're currently doing reviews for an all-way stop there. It's been
That's good.
I thought that was already.
I'm sorry, where at? 90th Street West and Avenue A.
Oh, that was A.
90th, not 60th.
LA County has to agree to it, and that's why it's taking a while.
Oh.
We sent our request there already, and the Board of Supervisors there will hopefully approve that. Roseman Boulevard and Glendower Street. The intersection was obviously a concern brought up here. They've reviewed the accident data. They're currently putting together a plan to, for accident reduction and more safety for pedestrians, as well as cars trying to cross those lanes to make the left turn.
Yes, brutal.
And right now, they think they're going to construct a median to restrict right in and right out movement. But they haven't put together an official plan yet, but they're gonna do something now. Roseman Boulevard, Mojave Tropico Road at 55th Street West. They're gonna be installing a street light at the crosswalk there.
The street light?
Yeah.
What was that intersection again? 55th Street West.
55th?
And Roseman Boulevard and
And
Mojave.
Tropical. It's over by the,
We already got a stop, they just put a stop sign there.
No, not a traffic signal, just a street light.
Oh,
So not a signal, just illumination.
Right,
yeah, okay.
street light.
That's one.
And at Summer Breeze Avenue at Howard Street, there was also a lot of complaints about the intersection there. and safety. And they reviewed the traffic volume and accident data, and it doesn't warrant funding.
Not enough people killed there yet? Isn't that what they're saying?
They've also done chip seal projects on 40th Street West to 90th Street West on Roseland Boulevard.
What kind of projects?
Chip sealing.
Chip sealing.
And from Roseland Boulevard to Avenue A on 90th, and 100th Street West to Sierra Highway on Avenue A. And I do understand that a couple weeks ago they did 35th Street by West Park Avenue, or West Park Elementary School, right? And 40th that you guys were concerned about?
Well, we're concerned about 35th between Roseland Boulevard and Orange.
Yeah.
They didn't do that?
No.
No, nothing's been done to that.
Okay, so we'll still work on that, but quite a bit of road work being done.
Appreciate it.
We would like to let everyone know we have recently formed the Rosamond Community Watch Program. We are trying to organize the entire community of Rosamond into neighborhood watch programs. We had our first meeting on October 25th. Our upcoming meeting is going to be on November 19th over at the Community Center on Diamond Street. We do have a representative coming from Bakersfield for the Crime Prevention Unit to speak with us and get the program up and running. We would like everyone to come out to the meeting.
Okay, that's it.
It will be November 19th, 6 o'clock
Community Center.
at the Community Center on Diamond Street.
We're ready.